You see, that was meant to be a thing to fuck with you because Christopher Nolan fucks with you.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
You never know what he's going to do. Actually, no, that is the thing. He is famous in his movies for having really what some people would call poor sound mixing, where they can't understand the dialogue at all. So that actually played really well. We meant to do that because Christopher Nolan movies, you can't understand his characters half the time, apparently, according to people who have seen The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar and Tenet. So that was planned. It was an homage. The end. Welcome back to Thoughts from the Movie this week. I feel like we've been having to do this too much recently, but once again, we have to mention somebody who passed away from the film community this past week. As most people probably know, Chadwick Boseman, the star of Black Panther and 42 and The Five Bloods and many other movies, succumbed to cancer, unfortunately, after a multi-year battle. Chadwick was in some awesome movies. He was Marvel's Black Panther and first major black superhero in a Marvel MCU movie, and just was a really impactful person in the film community, and another person that's gone too soon. 2020, I don't know what it is, but it's just, all around been not so kind. So rest in peace, Chadwick. Thank you so much for everything that you've contributed to the movies. We'll miss all the work that you were going to give us over the next couple decades, which I'm sure would have been amazing. So rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. This week, our topic is the one and only Christopher Nolan. To coincide with box offices around the world opening back up, and Tenet coming out in the U.S. this week. It's already been out in theaters around the world for a week or two and is putting up some nice box office numbers, but it's coming out stateside this week. So we thought it would be a great time to go back and look over his career, just given that it's his movie coming out and because he's such a big proponent of the theatrical experience, which we certainly celebrate. So we figured it'd be a great time to go back and look at what Christopher Nolan's done. So tonight on the show, we're going to start with a brief career overview, just going back over some of his old films, just to make sure everybody's caught up on everything he's done. A man of many subjects, as you'll find out as we go through his career overview. And one of the things, of course, that he's known for is nonlinear stories and unique visuals. We'll get into some of the characters.
You are shaking the table like a fucking earthquake, and it's messing with the...
Brody, stop shaking the table.
Nothing to do with the dog.
It's the dog. It's
Leave
Brody.
the dog alone.
My hands are up here. We're in a dream. It's collapsing. The dream is collapsing, I swear. Yeah. Down, 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 down. We need the sound. And then we'll get into, of course, our favorite overrated, underrated segment at the end, going through Christopher Nolan's movies. So, Josh, any opening thoughts before we dive in here?
Man, okay, so I think the text message was, how many Christopher Nolan movies have you seen? And then I went and I looked and I went, man, he only made like 10 movies and I've seen more than half of them. I must think Christopher Nolan's a good director. And then I thought more about it and I thought, I don't think I'm smart enough to think Christopher Nolan's a good director. Because a lot of the movies I've seen and a lot of the movies I didn't understand.
You're not alone.
And I spent most of my day today listening to different things in an attempt to better understand him and what he brings to the table and what it is. But I don't know that I'm any smarter for it. And, yeah, that's my opening thought about Christopher Nolan. I will say this. Every time I've watched a Christopher Nolan movie, at some point I'm like, right, and I'm on the edge of my seat. So I would like to take this torch. Wouldn't it be sick if I had a real torch?
That would be sick. I was like, what's he grabbing?
Right. I would take this torch from Alfred Hitchcock as the master of suspense.
Whoa.
And I'll pass it to Christopher Nolan as the modern master of suspense.
Wow. Didn't think you were going to pull that one out. All the way back to Hitchcock. Wow.
Nobody did it better than Hitchcock, ever.
We'll get into that a little bit after we go through his rundown, because
Okay.
I do want to touch on that for a sec. But let's do a quick recap for those who have forgotten some of his lesser-known and still extraordinary features over the course of his, 3-decade career now. Christopher Nolan, British director, he started his career with a movie called, Doodlebug was technically the first movie he made, which is more of a student film, but his first indie film was called Following, which is a black and white movie, and it had to do with stalking. It was short. I think it was about 60 minutes, 65 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a little bit shorter, shoestring budget, about 60K, self-financed, and it was one of his first forays into non-linear storytelling, which is something that's going to become a common theme in his career. So that was his first movie, called Following. That led to a movie called Insomnia, which was a Warner Brothers movie that a lot of people didn't really see. It starred Robin Williams and Al Pacino, and was a mystery thriller set in Alaska. It was very well done, very well reviewed, just not a lot of people went to see it at the time. So I think those two movies are probably the ones that most people have not seen of Christopher Nolan's, his first two, but no less of the quality of his other movies. From there we go to Memento, which is probably one of his more famous ones, with Guy Pearce and Joe Pantoliano, and of course has the multiple storylines being edited together and cross-cut in black and white as it moves forward, with color as it moves backwards, or if I have that backwards. But one's black and white, one's color, and they move in alternate directions. And that really put him on the map as far as the supreme level of talent and uniqueness that he showed. And from there, he went to, of course, Batman Begins, and started the Dark Knight trilogy, which at the time, of course, no one knew what it would become. And Batman Begins was more of that was a pretty good Batman movie, but it was not nearly at the level as Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, but certainly a more than capable, different comic book adaptation than we had seen before. Very dark and very cerebral and sort of broody and angsty, so certainly different there. The next movie, I'm going to bring my good buddy Josh Elsass in on, because he just happened to watch it in preparation for this. The Prestige, which is a movie a lot of people love. I love it, but it didn't do very much box office. It only did about 100 worldwide, so 50-50 split against a decent budget. But Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale, Rebecca Hall, ScarJo, about dueling magicians in the 19th century. So, Josh, I want to bring you in for your 2-minute hot take. What was your reaction after just having watched The Prestige for the first time?
So, last week we watched The Town.
Yes.
And Rebecca, what was her name? What's her name?
Rebecca Hall.
Rebecca Hall. Yes. I'm like, man, I wish she was Scarlett Johansson. So Justin goes, watch the movie where they star opposite each other.
There you go. This whole
and
thing.
I was like, the whole time, I'm like, ScarJo's so much better. Man, trippy movie, super fucking cool. And you know how Josh thinks like one thing is the other thing, right? This is not the movie where the two bad magicians try to outdo each other, which is a parody movie of this movie. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Two bad magicians try to outdo each other?
Bad magician comedy movie.
Comedy movie. Is Adam Sandler in it?
The incredible Burt Wonderstone.
Burt Wonderstone with Steve Carell.
is what I was thinking of.
Is better than The Prestige, isn't that what you just said?
No, is what you're like, oh yeah, it's two magicians, and I'm like, it can't be this movie, right? Like, there's no way it's this craptastic movie. Let's see.
Jim Carrey and Steve Carell.
Yeah, Jim Carrey, Steve Carell play. I watched this once in a hotel room, but like they're just both bad magicians.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna skip through this trailer a little bit. Yeah, they
look at those outfits. They're like Siegfried and Roy wannabes.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
Steve Buscemi, of course. Oh, so Jim Carrey is like the Chris Angel badass. Like,
right.
Okay.
Right.
Oh
yeah.
God.
I'm not saying it's worth a watch, but like,
is it so bad that it's good?
Yeah. If you had some stuff in your system, and you were just like, man, I want to watch something real dumb.
Yeah.
I'd recommend that.
Okay.
I was a prisoner of a captive audience in that one. But anyway, yeah, so The Prestige, really cool twist. And like, what is not to like? You got Michael Caine being old and cool. You've got Christian Bale. Christian Bale's name is Alfred, which is Michael Caine's character's name in a different movie where they were just in it together. That's awesome. ScarJo, awesome. How about Andy Serkis and David Bowie hanging out in Colorado together, experimenting on shit? Awesome. But then you had to bring Hugh Jackman into this.
Oh, don't give me that Dr. Cox
Hugh
bullshit.
Jackman. No, it was really good.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was, yeah. And, like, to hear Christian Bale just speak normal in a movie is so rare.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. I don't know if it was, because he's Welsh, and I don't know if that was
Right.
technically his own accent. It was more sort of a Cockney, blue-collar English accent, but I think it's pretty close to his actual accent.
Pretty
If
close
it
to his
wasn't,
actual.
If it wasn't his actual one, it's, I think, pretty close.
Right. So, yeah, super cool movie. Man, I don't know. And we'll get into this later, but, like, nothing can just be the way it's supposed to be in a Christopher Nolan movie.
It never can be.
It's
no,
like,
too
I'm,
boring.
like, loving the storyline.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a lot about when the twist comes.
Mm-hmm.
And the twist came a little too late in the movie for me. Because there were, like, 3 fake twists that were then the real twist was revealed that there were twins and, the whole 9 yards. And, like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still processing that movie.
Yeah.
Get back to me next week when I'm like, holy shit, the reason he said he couldn't tell him whether or not he did the wet knot or the noose is because he literally didn't know because it was the other one. What the fuck?
Yeah. I love the whole Christian Bale secretly has a twin brother, and that's how they've been able to create all this crazy, all these magical acts and just bewilderment, and like one gets their finger cut off, the other has to cut his finger off. Like it's crazy. I don't know how much I love the Hugh Jackman like cloning himself, all that plot line.
Yeah.
And then it's like one of the clones dies and he never knows which one it is. Like that was a little almost convoluted.
Is this a hot take? This might be a hot take. Christopher Nolan is a more successful M. Night Shyamalan.
Whoa. Interesting.
In the sense that they both have twisty movies that maybe are non-linear based, and this movie in particular was closer to an M. Night Shyamalan type twist with the actual science fiction of it, you know what I mean, at the end, versus like just like things aren't as they appear kind of thing, like in Memento.
Gotcha. Interesting. That is a hot take. Okay.
So yeah.
But in overall, you loved it though, right?
Absolutely loved the movie. It was a great movie. I was trying to do show prep while watching the movie. Like I had it on in the background, and I just kept like stop what I was doing and kept what the fuck is happening in this movie now? Like, yeah. So
because
it's really good.
Yeah, and we'll talk about his other movies too, but it's very much the same in that the visuals are stunning, but it's also got really great characters and a really cool, intricate story that you have to pay attention to. So a lot of the things that would go on to be his trademarks.
And something that we'll talk about, I'm sure, is how much I appreciate Christopher Nolan for letting actors act.
Excellent. So after The Prestige, he went to his magnum opus, The Dark Knight, which I don't want to spend too much time on because
is that it?
What would you consider it to be? Here's the debate that I have with this. His movie after The Dark Knight was Inception,
right?
And I have always considered those to be his 2 best movies.
Yes.
And which do you think is better, right? I mean, I honest to God, I think Inception is just the most unique, cool, interesting. I can't believe somebody thought of this and made this work type of like beautiful piece of cinema. But I think The Dark Knight just transcends so many things. It's just almost hard. It's so far beyond the comic book, the standard comic book movie, and how it's made and what it's about. I mean, I just think it's so far above, and it stands above in the Nolan lexicon. But honestly, I do think there is a conversation to be had between those 2 movies. But if you have another one you throw in there,
I think Inception is his. What was the fancy word you used?
Magnum opus.
Magnum opus. I think is Inception. Dark Knight is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I think it is the greatest crime thriller ever made. But Christopher Nolan movies only have one word in the title and have characters that are unique to him and nobody else. So to me, despite the fact that I think Dark Knight's amazing, I think Dark Knight cannot be his because even though he wrote it, he did not write Batman and the Joker and Harvey Dent and Commissioner Gordon, like all
Sure.
those characters.
Definitely an argument to be made for not being original.
And that's what I love about Christopher Nolan so much. And I just found this out today, is that he writes all of his own fucking movies.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is that he actually co-writes all of his movies with his brother Jonah, who created Westworld, except for Dunkirk, which Christopher Nolan wrote himself. And this is interesting, and I don't know if you agree with this, but what I found was that after watching Dunkirk, which, as I told you, is very technically impressive, doesn't have a really deep story. It's not a very emotional story.
Sure.
Like it's just not deep on the character level.
Refresh everybody what the gimmick is with Dunkirk.
With Dunkirk, yeah.
When it came out and it was like the gimmick, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So like explain it, not meant to say gimmick in a bad way, but yeah.
So Dunkirk is the story of the evacuation of Dunkirk, the beach in France in World War II, when 300,000 British soldiers got trapped by the Nazis on the beach, and what Churchill and the British did, where they sent all these small ships and boats and like dinghies and stuff across from England to pick up all the soldiers and bring them back safely across the English Channel. The way the movie is told is it's told in 3 alternating timelines, time perspectives. So there's one perspective from the group of soldiers on the beach, and it spans 1 week. There's one perspective from a father and son going across on a boat, and that spans 1 day. And then there's a perspective from Tom Hardy and a couple fighter pilots in the sky, and that spans 1 hour. So he's cutting together 3 different storylines that all have different overall lengths of time, which is really interesting because you'll be watching one, you'll see that you'll be with the guys on the boat, and then the planes fly overhead from an earlier shot, and it just sort of, the way it ties together is very technically impressive. I mean, he weaves 3 storylines together pretty seamlessly, even though they're all on different clocks, which is really cool. But again, you don't really dive into the characters all that much. I mean, it's more about the technical side and all of the cool practical effects and things like that. It's not really about the characters and everything. And I think that is more representative of a Christopher Nolan movie than all his other ones. It seems like when Jonah left the writing process, so left the character development and more of the involvement in characters. And I don't know if you agree with that, but just because you haven't seen Dunkirk, but I think that Christopher Nolan's own particular specialty is the complexities of the plot and the uniqueness of the actual production of it and things like that. But when you're talking about story and character and emotional connection and empathy and that stuff, I think Jonah was probably more of the specialist in that division.
Well, I'm a sucker for a brother writing team. See Coen brothers. And Spielberg's wife co-wrote all of his stuff. Somebody did. But like, I think that remains to be seen. Because I haven't seen Tenet. Have you?
No, I mean, I don't think it's in theaters until Friday in the U.S.
Okay.
So,
well, I wasn't sure. Hollywood Justin got like a sneak preview or something.
I have not seen it yet.
Okay. So I think that probably remains to be seen whether or not he can hold the exposition on his own without his brother. But isn't that like a big? So Christopher Nolan to me is the film school nerds director right now. He's that guy, right? Whereas like Fincher would be one of those guys too, right? He's in that class. Tarantino is mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes, especially regular moviegoers, don't necessarily appreciate all of the character building stuff, and I think that's been a big critique of Nolan's movies. They're too long. They're too in depth. I don't care. Move on. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you and I like really dig into that kind of stuff. We're like, yes, please, more. I think it's probably good to some extent that maybe he's trying to speed up and spend less character moments and more time telling an overall arcing story.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see with Tenet. I believe he wrote this one by himself as well. I'd have to double check, but we'll see what this one's like. It could be, more of the same or different.
Well, and Tenet's got my guy in it, Ricky Jarrett from Ballers.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say our Pats. I really did. My guy Robert Pattinson's in it.
Nope.
Honest to God, Robert Pattinson, not to go off on a crazy tangent, but he's done a lot of very interesting work since Twilight. People are like, ugh, Robert Pattinson, the fucking Twilight guy, but he's actually a very talented actor. He's done a lot of great indie films in between, so I respect him. So don't shit on him.
Okay.
So that's the debate between Dark Knight and Inception. I'm going with Dark Knight is his number one, and as much as I love Inception, Josh is going to go with that as his most iconic and.
Right.
And I guess it's the one that he has his fingers in the most. And
Yes.
honest to God, I don't know if I'll ever see a movie that has blew my mind more than, like once I wrapped my head around it, like some guy created this whole thing in his head, and that just, I'll never be able to wrap my head around. So after Inception, we move back into the Dark Knight territory with The Dark Knight Rises, which was filmed in Pittsburgh partly, and that I was lucky enough to be a PA on and see Christopher Nolan in action for a few weeks, which was awesome. And The Dark Knight Rises, I think, is awful, and I love to hate on it with my buddies and friends because so much of that movie does not make sense. Like, people just appear out of nowhere, and, like, timelines don't make any sense and shit like that, so...
Nope, but it's got JGL, it's got Anne Hathaway, Catwoman, Robin.
Great cast.
Tom Hardy's running around in a mask and a flak jacket.
Yeah.
It's, like, if you could just turn your brain off.
Right.
It's a great movie.
Don't think about it at all. Yeah. Did you have trouble understanding Bane?
No.
Okay.
No.
I did not.
But I think not only is that an indictment normally on Christopher Nolan, but it's also an indictment on Tom Hardy in general.
Yeah.
I don't need to, like, okay, so you ever heard somebody say, like, in music, they're like, I don't even know what they're singing. Like, I don't know the words to the song. I just like the music.
I say that all the time.
Okay, that's me with Tom Hardy.
Nice.
I don't care what he's saying.
Yeah. I
I'm
just love
like,
to look at him.
I'm just look at him and hear.
Yeah.
He's the man.
Nice. Did you like Dark Knight Rises though? By the way, as a movie. It's so funny because
so hard.
you can just point to moments in it, like the whole plane scene at the beginning is fucking amazing, all practical. One plane hitches onto another plane and like
this
it drops.
plane isn't landing.
Yeah, unbelievable. But then there are scenes where you can go on TV and watch them where Batman's fighting 10 guys and you can see one of the extras not even near Batman and he just falls over in the middle of the scene. Like, it's just Christopher Nolan does not direct second unit stuff, or he directs everything himself. He does not have separate people do second units.
Right.
So I think he just was stretched too thin on this movie. There was too much.
Well, okay. I need to actually hang on a second. Let me pull up IMDb, who should probably sponsor this show. Christopher Nolan. And we're going to pull up his directing. Get this writing thing out of here. Directing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to share this with everybody. Hang on a second. I had to get it ready. Okay. There we go. Okay. So you make that many hit movies from 08 to 12 and tell me that you have anything left in the fucking tank. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, and this is coming off of Prestige and Batman Begins. Like, literally, how hard would that be? Batman movie, my movie. Batman movie, my movie. Batman movie, my movie. Like, I would have been so sick of this Dark Knight Rises. Like, I wouldn't even wanted to do it. And I think we know for these directors who get stuck in these trilogy-based IP that they don't own, right? But they're otherwise creative self-directors. Okay, here's Sam Raimi, and wow, his name just jumped out of my brain. Did you see it leave? Who did Lord of the Rings?
Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson. Okay, so Peter Jackson killed it on Return of the King. We're not going to point fingers at that. Third Spider-Man, weird dancing emo sequence, right? Third Batman, weird fucking shit happens there, right?
Yeah.
And for, God damn it, Peter Jackson, all of The Hobbit was like his, like, I don't want to fucking do this, right? Because they love the first one and they make their version of it, right? Like, the first Spider-Man is my favorite because it's a Sam Raimi movie with Spider-Man in it. Batman Begins is an amazing movie because it's a Christopher Nolan movie with Batman in it. And then Dark Knight obviously being amazing and Spider-Man 2 also being amazing, right? And then by the time they get to the third movie, they're like, I'm kind of done with this. And I have nothing more to tell about this character, but my contract says I do. So I'm like, just going to make what I can. And then they try to get funny and cute with it or like entertain themselves. And then it becomes a shit movie.
Definitely.
That's my theory on it. With that being said, Bane is so fucking cool. I love Robin and Batman together. And so any kind of hint at a Robin I like in a Batman movie. And that might be the only two redeeming things.
Nice.
And it's shot in Pittsburgh, 3.
Okay.
And there's a weird scene with Heinz Ward.
Right, yeah. Oh,
That's it.
So bizarre. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just because, it's so close to home for us, but it's just like, just feels weird.
Right.
Really
and
forced.
It's also, Christopher Nolan's known for practical effects, and this movie has so much fucking, like, CGI in it, it's not even funny. Which stands at, like, go watch Batman Begins, watch Dark Knight Rises, or Dark Knight, and then watch Dark Knight Rises, and you're like, one of these is not like the others for more reasons than one.
Agreed. Agreed.
So, no?
Me neither.
Okay.
All right, so then he jumps to Interstellar in 2014,
Yes.
which was his ode to Kubrick in 2001, which is the film that Christopher Nolan was inspired by that set him on the path to be a filmmaker. And so there's a lot of homages to old science fiction in that, but overlong and some more issues with people can't hear dialogue and things like that. But in general, still does a ton of money and is pretty decently well reviewed.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Dunkirk, of course, which we already went over, and he got his first Academy Award nomination for directing there. Long overdue, a lot of people think, but he finally got it on that one, and now we have Tenet coming out.
Right.
So I think one of the amazing things about it is just, when I think about Christopher Nolan, is how many complex topics he has just completely conquered, right? You think he's conquered memory, and he's conquered space-time, and he has conquered dreams, and he has conquered the biggest war that's ever happened. I mean, that's one of the things when I think of Christopher Nolan's filmmaking, it's just, it seems like he's running out of incredible things to discover and explore, right? Like, I'm not going to say that he's smarter than cinema, but it's just like his ideas are so big. How do you keep producing at that level, right? It's like Tom Cruise doing a new movie shot in space. It's like, after so many movies where he's just done every single stunt in the history of the world and been to every country, and it's like he's nothing left to satisfy himself except go to space, right? And it's like Christopher Nolan's the same way. He's just beaten every single incredibly complex, brilliant subject, and it's like, what else could there possibly be? So that's why Tenet's going to be really interesting to see what direction he goes with on that one. I want to ask you this about Christopher Nolan, and this isn't in our queue, but this is a question I have for you. After going over his filmography, right, and discussing the kind of director that he is Christopher Nolan the new Steven Spielberg? Is he our generation Steven Spielberg?
It's funny you said that because I had that same fucking thought today as I was thinking about it, because they're blockbuster movies that are produced at a different quality than normal blockbuster movies. They have star-studded casts who are then critically acclaimed for doing amazing roles. He kind of has his cast of guys that he likes to work with, though, in that same breath, right? A lot of Christian Bale, a lot of Michael Caine, a lot of Tom Hardy, JGL. I don't think he is Steven Spielberg. I still put him closer to a Kubrick, a Coppola, a film school nerd director than I would a Spielberg, because in film school nobody was like, Spielberg's the greatest. Like, I was the only person ever saying that in film school. So I don't think he has more street cred than that, which is kind of unfair because that makes him even cooler, right? He can make these giant blockbuster movies that make all this money with Leonardo DiCaprio in them, and everyone's like, not only did you make all that movie or all that money, but man, you are just a talented motherfucker, and that's like kind of annoying to me. And I think the other reason why he's not Spielberg is because he's only made 11 movies. And to me, when you think about great directors, they limit what they do because they want to make sure they do the right movies, right? Tarantino only has
9.
9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then who was? Oh, Sam Raimi only has 10 or 11.
Paul Thomas Anderson, a guy who doesn't do a lot of movies.
Fincher. I mean, there's, when you think of like the top tier of director, they maybe top out at 15 movies total because they are artists, and when they feel like they don't have anything to say, they won't say anything. They're not like not to shit on musicians, but they're not held to a record contract where you have to have a hit every 5 years. They just make a movie when they feel like making a movie because they have something to say. And Christopher Nolan, being the student of literature that he is, I think when he has something to say, it's really quite powerful.
Sure. I mean, they both do, right? They both do big commercial movies, summer blockbusters. I think because Nolan writes his own stuff, that's a different thing there. I don't think Steven's probably written maybe 1 movie or 2 movies in his career, but generally does not write his movies.
But he's had a hand in the writing of a lot of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
But also the difference is Steven's movies are more crowd pleasers, I think, where Nolan's are much more cerebral and much more intellectually complex. Like Jurassic Park is awesome, but it's not like the most, out there narrative in the world. Like certainly a movie like Schindler's List is a very layered movie, but I don't know if Steven really explores or has explored these insane grand ideas that are hard to almost wrap your head around, like Nolan has with his with his editing style Memento, or the concept of Inception, or things like that. I don't know that. I think in sort of the types of movies that they make, yes, but I feel like Christopher Nolan's movies have that more cerebral quality to them, where they really challenge you and make you think, and they leave you guessing at the end, a lot of them. I mean, whereas Stevens are more cut and dry, and here it is, it's fun, it's big, you can go see it in the summer, it's awesome, but it's not like a week later you're like, what the heck was that thing doing that, or was it not doing? You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's really like a debate around Saving Private Ryan, like what happened there.
Hey now,
Love it,
they both own movies in my top 10 of all time. Spielberg's being Jurassic Park and Nolan's being Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
They both tackle sci-fi in a way where they get credit for making a good movie in spite of it being a science fiction picture. I just think, for better or for worse, Nolan is too artsy to be compared to Spielberg. And I don't know that we have had... The closest thing we've had to Spielberg is Feige.
Kevin Feige?
Yep.
He doesn't direct movies.
I know. But that's the closest thing we've had.
Oh, interesting.
As far as a guaranteed, stapled on, gonna be a hit, gonna make a gajillion dollars, that Spielberg was through the 80s and 90s. Closest thing we've had to that in modern day is Kevin Feige and Marvel.
I absolutely think that Christopher Nolan is that. His movies have all been massive blockbusters. I mean, Interstellar was somewhat of a disappointment, and it made $680 million worldwide. I mean, you look at Batman Begins, 300 something. Prestige, as we mentioned, was only about 100. A lot of people didn't see it. Dark Knight, $1 billion. Inception, 900. Dark Knight Rises, $1 billion. Interstellar, 6 or 7. Dunkirk was about, I think, 5 or 6.
Yeah, but how many?
They're all mega huge blockbusters.
How many box office records did Christopher Nolan break?
I don't know.
Spielberg broke his own fucking record, right? And who did that? Who did that? Fucking Feige.
Oh, okay.
Take
I'm not
this
buying
mic
that
off,
one.
drop it.
I'm not buying that one at all.
But like, I mean, yeah. So what? It's not like, okay, in that same time frame, George Lucas was making incredible, blockbusters too, and maybe had a little bit more substance to them. But like, Spielberg stapled on hit after hit after hit after hit that were breaking box office records. And I don't think there is a single director right now doing that at that level.
Yeah.
Maybe Cameron, but Cameron is like this weird fucking enigma.
He hasn't made a movie in a decade.
Right, and then when he will, it'll break all the box office records again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't want to turn this into a debate about the two, but I do think there is an argument to be made for them being cut of the same cloth.
They definitely have
sure.
some similarities, but he also has similarities to M. Night Shyamalan. So you pick which barrel you want to take here.
You mentioned something I want to ask you real quick, and we don't have to spend a long time on this, but you mentioned that he uses a lot of the same cast in his movies. Does that bother you? Have you ever been like, I'm tired of seeing Michael Caine in every single one of his movies as the old guy? Who's like, okay.
More Michael Caine movies.
Well, that's just in general, true.
Always. More, well, and you know
it's just
what?
like you look at Inception and you look at The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, it's just like all these movies are just overlapped with all the characters.
I think part of the problem is we always talk about my my Irish trio of Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, and Christian Bale anyway, and how like if Josh became famous director, like Tom Hardy being all my movies, Cillian Murphy being all my movies. So I guess he's just playing with the set of dice that I wish I had. So I'm probably not sick of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also Tarantino's my favorite director. So clearly I'm okay with I have this one favorite actor that I just like to use and abuse. Kevin Smith does it too. Like I think a lot of my favorite actors or my favorite directors do that kind of stuff. So okay. It doesn't bother me.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think it does me either, but it's just it's interesting.
There's also
for sure.
There's also a finite number, and we've talked about this topic a lot. There's only a finite number of people who are draws for a blockbuster, which he makes. We both agree on that, but also can deliver you a great performance, right? That list is very short. So he only has X number to pick from to begin with, and if you have ones that you trust and you know are going to bring that thing that you need, might as well keep using them until they don't work anymore.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next topic. We discussed a little bit the nonlinear ways. I want to go over the visuals now because we talked about some of his nonlinear stories, including Memento and Inception, all that stuff. But we have a lot of visuals here because Christopher Nolan is such a visual filmmaker and just so many beautiful and unique ones. Let's roll through some of these because it's so interesting that we mentioned this a little earlier, but Christopher Nolan's movies, not only are they incredibly well made and well thought out, but they also have a sort of exploration of really big, grand, unique concepts, some of which haven't even really been explored or discovered enough about for him to know about them. So let's talk about some of these. Like you have the Penrose Stairs, right, in Inception. So these are the infinite staircase based on this is a concept that's existed for a while, but he actually visualized this and put it in his movie of a staircase that leads to nowhere. It keeps going in circles, right? So this is, in theory, this is an impossible thing, but look at the visuals. He makes it real, right? So not only is he thinking about it, but he puts it in his movie and lets us see it, right? I want to talk about the Tesseract in Interstellar, which is a really cool movie because these are completely theoretical things that no one has ever seen before, right? And he designed these for this movie based on, scientific theory and probabilities. He had Kip Thorne, who was a NASA advisor, on board with this movie with him, planning and making these visuals come to life, right? And we also have one of the black hole from Interstellar, and this one's really interesting. Because we had never seen a picture of a black hole before. And this, Josh, can you pause it on that? This is what Christopher Nolan and Kip Thorne had come up with for what a black hole should look like based on all of the evidence in theory in all the documentation that was out there for what conceptually it would look like. Now, can we bring up the picture of what a real black hole looks like? Because we did have this image come out in the past year from NASA. So that's pretty fucking amazing. Like this thing, no one had ever seen it before, ever. And Christopher Nolan gets an astrophysicist from NASA, and they create this based on theory, and that it actually become, you actually see that that's pretty spot on. Like that, to me, that's just blows my mind. And it's just an example of his commitment to the authenticity of things. But it's just like, it's such a complex thing. No one had ever seen a black hole before, ever. We didn't know what they looked like. And just for a movie, he made one, and that actually was what it was. Like, that's insanely cool to me. And it's also not even just in his movies, bless you, but yeah, but you look at things like, let's pull up the Memento poster, right?
Yep.
Because that's really cool, and that's part of his visuals and his aesthetics, right? This is something called the Drost effect, and that's where you have an image that repeats in itself, supposedly infinitely until forever, right? So the left is an example of what the Drost effect actually is. This is the poster for Memento, where it's Leonard holding up a photo, she's holding up a photo of him holding up a photo, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, that's such a complex idea, and to just throw it out casually, like, this is the poster for my fucking movie, is pretty insane to
His
me.
first movie, really. Like, he had a movie before that, but, like, his first, like, feature film. It's like, yeah, here's this.
Right.
Here's this wild poster.
Yeah, and let's actually, we have a picture of the editing for Memento. We have what that actually looks like if you visualized how it was cut together. And Josh, you're an editor, so I hope you appreciate this more than I do. So this is how the movie Memento was edited. If you broke down each section, the red one, obviously, like it says, are the color sequences, and then you have the black and white ones meshing together. So if you've seen the movie, you know that there's part of the movie plays forward, and then we go backward to see part of it, and then at the end it all ties together because it's about a guy who lost his memory, so he's trying to retrace his steps and figure it out. So you have the reds and the blues here going from, on a visual aspect, you go from one red to one blue to one red to one blue, all the way until the very end when they converge, like it says there, now where was I? That's the very last line in the movie. So this isn't a visual that's in his movie, but it's a representation of what he does. And to me, that's like, Josh, you probably understand the complexity of that or appreciate it more than I do.
Yeah, okay, so, like, I'm just going to pull this back up here, and I'm going to nerd out for a minute. Okay. So he has the timeline of the entire movie across the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then chronological sequence the other way. Okay. Movie starts and ends. So I saw Memento after I saw Crash because I was just really into nonlinear editing at that point. And I watched a couple of things today where Christopher Nolan's, like, drawing on walls and shit on set, like, trying to explain to people where this scene lies in the actual construct of his movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so, like, it's just like crazy man yells at clouds, kind of, but in the best way possible. That it's just amazing to me to watch it unfold, and, like, to think about that he thinks like that. Because, like, when you're editing something, okay, you have your timelines, right? And a lot of times, every editor does it their own way, but a lot of them use what are called labels inside of the program, where you turn certain things certain colors, right? So, like, as you're going through footage, you're like, okay, this is footage from scene 3, so I'm going to make this all yellow, and scene 4 is going to be all orange, and then I know where I am throughout the timeline. All right, all my first act stuff's red, all my second act's blue. And so, but to think, like, not only does he have the first and second act, but then he's like, you know what? Fuck this. Let's make a pattern out of colors inside of my clips. Like, it's so awesome and intelligent. And I just want to talk to him.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, not only do you have a movie, it's hard enough to write a movie from start to finish that works and connects and flows and all these things, right?
I'm sure his editors hate him.
But let alone if you have the idea in your movie, like, okay, I'm going to make this movie, but what I'm going to do is we're going to be 3 minutes in the present, and then we're going to go backwards for a minute, and then we're going to do 2 minutes in the present, and then we're going backwards for a minute. Like, just to be able to wrap your mind around that concept, to me, is insane. And knowing Christopher Nolan's techniques the way I do, I guarantee you he didn't write the movie out and then splice it, then reorder it. I guarantee you he wrote it in that way that he had meant it to be seen.
What's brilliant about Christopher Nolan, though, and this is and I'm going to keep using M. Night Shyamalan as an example because I think it's somebody that mirrors a lot of the techniques he does but does not do them as well. But is somebody that, like, anybody has seen an M. Night Shyamalan movie, so that's why I'm bringing it up. We always know what's going on. Like, when Christopher Nolan jumped backwards, you catch up real quick that we jump backwards. And he doesn't do anything to let you know that he's jumped backwards. There's no change in saturation, black and white, or the way it's shot, nothing. And the characters hardly ever change. Like, they don't look younger or older or anything like that. But we know we've skipped time somehow. We're not sure necessarily right away whether it's forward, backwards, but we know we've jumped time, and we're immediately able to place it where it belongs in the linear version of it, right? So I'm watching Prestige. It starts with the death of Hugh Jackman's character, death. And we see what we think is the murder of Hugh Jackman's character. We later then find out it was just meant to be a murder because he's killing a clone. But what's really incredible about that, as we jump back to, like, then we jump back even further in the timeline, right? When they're first getting together, kind of hanging out, right? Then we jump forward to the timeline where Hugh Jackman's like a big star, right? Then we jump back again. And, like, every time we jump, we know exactly where we are. We're not confused. And it's so incredible to watch him be able to do it that, like, I don't know. Is this making any sense? Like, I don't feel like I'm articulating it well.
No, I think that's the nature of him, is that it's hard for normal people to articulate his process and his movies and everything.
Right.
But I understand what you're trying to say.
It's just, like, my mom can't watch Pirates of the Caribbean because she can't understand where the fuck they are when they are. And that story is start to front. There's no fucking backwards, forwards, nothing.
Yeah.
But I feel like if she she does. She has watched Batman Begin and The Dark Knight, and she's, I think, enjoyed those. I don't know. But, like, we're never lost in his movies. Even though he's fucking with you the entire time. Mm-hmm. We're never lost, and we're always right where he wants us. We're always, like, feeling sympathetic for the right character at the right time, right? Whether it's Leo's character in Inception or Hugh Jackman's character in Prestige, right? We think Hugh Jackman is the good guy through Prestige, right? And that Christian Bale's the bad guy. And then they do this flip, and you're like, holy shit, this is wild, right?
Yep.
But he has to be so good at reeling us in one way to jerk us back the other way, and he does it through nonlinear editing and great character building without losing us through complex stories.
Let me ask you this, because we had nonlinear editing as one of our earlier topics, and I want to circle back just for a sec to ask you. So of Christopher Nolan's movies, here are the ways that he has told his stories, right? In Memento, he just alternates between going forward and going backwards for the whole movie, right?
But they're inverted.
Yeah. I mean, it's
like
completely...
Like, literally, imagine a roller coaster where one cart goes this way and one cart goes that way.
Right.
That's how he's doing it. But they're going to intersect the entire time. So even though you saw that cart go forward and you know your cart's going this way, you guys are going through the ride at the same pace.
Right.
That's fucking awesome.
It's crazy. So you have that style, right? And then you have in Inception, you have the multiple dream layers where each time he goes
it
deeper,
drops down.
It slows. Yeah, time's relativity slows down in each one, and you have to connect the 3 different layers of dreams on 3 timelines, much like Dunkirk, actually, now that I think about it. And then you have Interstellar, which dealt with black holes and time warps and things like that, where, you know, they're on the planet for 5 minutes, and then when they get back to space, it's been 20 years and things like that. Right. So you have the more extreme space-time physical elements of it. Which of those do you think was the most difficult to work with? Do you have a favorite one of those? I mean, as far as an editing standpoint, is Memento probably the worst of those to connect together? Because they're all unique and different in the way that they mess with the linear storytelling.
So Memento's crazy because, much like Prestige, the guy you're cheering for ends up being the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out that even though he's the bad guy, he didn't even mean to be the bad guy, right? So in Memento, he's trying to avenge the death of his wife, who he believes was raped and murdered, Turns out he raped her. But he didn't murder her on purpose. He murdered her accidentally by giving her more insulin than she needed. Fucking crazy. Memento, to me, probably is the hardest to understand and is the least... It doesn't give you any hints the entire way through it. It's just dragging you along. Prestige, Inception do a great job of keeping you right here. They're like, okay, you got that? All right, we're going to move on to the next thing now. Interstellar did a terrible job at that. And I don't blame him. And you kind of alluded to it. We don't know enough about time and space. Like, Neil deGrasse Tyson is like, that could be true, right? Like, but we don't know enough for him to have accurately told that story to keep us, I feel like, to keep us along the timeline with him, right? Because I watched the entire thing once, and I was like, that was a weird fucking movie. And I'm like, and I think a lot of people got mad. We're like, he was the ghost? They were talking about these aliens the whole time, and they're just us? And wait a minute, his daughter's dead, but he came back to find the daughter, but he's going to go fuck Anne Hathaway anyway? Like, what is going on here? Versus, like, oh, there was two magicians, and then he was actually the bad guy who was obsessed with stealing his tricks because he didn't realize that he did have a double. And, like, those, like, Inception and Prestige are so easy to consume, and Interstellar's so heady to begin with. The idea of like, space is relative, and it's a construct that we created. That's right. Time doesn't exist. Humans made time.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Big ideas.
That fucks with you, right? So, like, to tell a story that doesn't involve running on a giant clock like The Great Mouse Detective, I think is probably difficult. It's just,
So you just think he kind of bit
worst.
off more than he could chew on that one? Like, it was just, he was exploring ideas that were too big for the average audience?
Yeah. And then I think he then corrects it in Dunkirk, right? Because he's like, okay, the levels thing worked in Inception. I'm still obsessed with time. Okay, let me make a thing where, like, 3 storylines happen at the same time, kind of like The Prestige. Cool, got it. Like, it was kind of a combination of all of his different forms of storytelling and obsessions in a lot of ways. But I love that idea that the plane flight's an hour, the boat thing is a day, and then a week of the war, right? I think other people have done that quite well. I've not seen Dunkirk. I'm just obsessed with that, like, idea. So I would imagine Dunkirk being much better than Interstellar because I feel like it's just easier to get your head around what's going on.
Sure.
Versus Interstellar, where he's trying to explain this giant concept, right? That not even, like, unless you're smoking a shit ton of weed and listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, you probably haven't ever been exposed to, let alone thought about deeply on your own. So he's going to tell it to you in a movie, but also take an hour of a 3-hour movie to explain why Matthew McConaughey is obsessed with his old mentor, who's actually lying to us the whole time, but then ended up being right.
Yeah. Agreed.
Interstellar was brutal.
Yeah.
I watched it again just to get mad. Like, I went back and saw it twice. I was like, all right, no, Christopher Nolan doesn't make a bad movie. I'm going to watch it. And then I
wouldn't say it's a bad movie, but it's certainly, I wouldn't watch it again. I appreciate everything that he did about it in terms of making it an homage to the classic space operas, and the score by Hans Zimmer with the organs is fantastic. And I just wouldn't, it's so heavy emotionally, and just the concepts are so big. I wouldn't watch it again. Plus it's like 245.
There's religious context underneath it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot. Even for Christopher Nolan, there's a lot.
It is a lot. Okay, what other visuals do we have just to splurge a little bit on how much we love Christopher Nolan? I know we have the logo for his company.
Okay,
right?
Sure. Yeah,
we have
that up.
So his company's called Syncope. It's just him and his wife, but it's a maze that has no way that can be solved. there is no center to the maze. So I mean, this is just his company's logo, but the attention to detail and the
Yeah,
complexity of that image.
Spielberg's not this wound up. Like
Yeah,
at the
that's
end
fair.
of the day,
That's fair.
he's just not this wound up.
Yeah.
And then let me go back to the clips here.
Yeah, which clips do you like? Because
This. Well, first off, just Andy Serkis and anything is amazing.
Sure.
But this is so beautiful. This is Spielberg-esque.
Look at that. That is amazing.
That's
so
Spielberg-esque.
beautiful.
That's E.T. That's, whatever. That's awesome.
Yeah. And Wally Pfister was his longtime DP before he went to direct his own movie called Transcendence with Johnny Depp that did it was a huge bomb, but he was an incredibly talented director of photography.
This entire movie, I kept thinking Andy Serkis was going to be Tesla.
Yeah.
I was kind of bummed, but then Tesla was David Bowie, so I was okay with it.
Right.
But I was like, I want Andy Serkis to just be Tesla.
Yeah. I mean, I love Andy Serkis and everything he's in, but you can't complain about David Bowie.
No.
You have that one. You have obviously the Inception hallway fight, which is incredibly iconic.
This.
Just so this was actually built on a fully rotating rig.
I should have pulled the behind the scenes clip instead of the actual clip.
It's unbelievable when you see the size of the rig that they had and how it was actually rotated on a gimbal. I mean, it's incredible. So again, it was all practical when you actually get to the hallway itself scene as it starts to turn and to twist and as gravity drops out of it. This was all practically done, even when they're floating through it. It's just the level of complexity, as we keep saying, but still, even with practical effects, like Christopher Nolan, as we said, is committed to in camera as much as possible.
Go watch Inception now.
Yeah.
I'm like locked into this scene, like remembering how good this movie is.
Yeah. So now they're in zero gravity, and then that's when it kicks in. The rotating hallway becomes zero grav. I mean, it's incredible. The choreography needed to do this is just unbelievable. We also have, what do we have? We have the...
Hang on, I'm not done.
Oh.
I love it.
Yeah. We have the Bat Cycle versus the semi-truck, right? In The Dark Knight, which is just... I mean, yes, it's technically incredible, but also... Yeah. It's so cool technically with the actual bat pod, and I had a chance. I actually got to sit on the bat pod or to lay on it when they had a couple here in Pittsburgh, and those things are whack. Like, you're laying on your stomach, and you actually, to go forward on these things, and there were only a couple people in the world that could pilot them, you actually have to go from side to side. You cannot go in a straight line on these. It's just not physically possible, so you actually have to weave through it. But it was such a cool vehicle, I guess you would say. Like, when it went up the wall and then came back down, and then when it like slid out sideways into the street, I just remember it being in the theater and be like, holy shit, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
This is very famously the movie I saw 3 times in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We were 18. You were working at the local movie theater. I saw it once with Josh Oshie. I saw it once with my brother, and I saw it the last time with you when you got off your shift. And I just watched you watch the movie. Literally, I just kept looking over this is gonna be wait for this part, wait for the pencil trick, wait for the pencil trick. I want to get to the part where it slides up the wall because it's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, the pencil trick will always stand out just for its badassery, but this to me was just such
is so incredible.
Yeah, and this is all a real stunt driver on a real operating machine. Even when it goes up the wall, and right here, how that's so. I've never seen a vehicle.
Boom, 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 boom.
I've never seen a vehicle move like that.
Right.
And to think that someone was actually driving that. Yeah, that's what's so awesome about Christopher Nolan's love of cinema and commitment to doing things the real way.
But I think
real.
I don't doubt Steven Spielberg's love for cinema. But here it comes. What I will say.
Real semi.
And that's a real semi they flipped.
Real
it's
semi.
So fucking cool.
Yep. And just to add on at the end.
There it is.
Whoop,
bang.
Dude. Oh my
Oh,
God.
so cool. I don't know that Spielberg is as big of a nerd as Christopher Nolan is.
I can see why. Yeah,
But
I get that.
I guess also Spielberg is the reason Christopher Nolan's a nerd.
Well, I think artsy was an interesting.
There's Inception.
When you said artsy, that was really interesting. Let's do the Dark Knight clip where he's on the tower, because when you say artsy, and that's actually it's kind of generic, but it's actually kind of true. I mean, this is a beautiful shot, and it's kind of taken very similarly from the movie Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. But just the coloring and the composition and the contrast of the shot is just beautiful. It really is. And I think this is probably the difference between the two, is that Christopher Nolan makes big-ass blockbusters that have such an incredible artistic design quality to them, right? And not everyone else does that. Even when he doesn't, there's no reason for that shot to be as beautiful as it is.
Right.
But it is. Do you have, let's move to the next one. Do you have, in all of the movies of Christopher Nolan in his filmography, do you have a favorite character that's not Tom Hardy? And I want to adjust this. The question is, what is your second favorite Nolan character? Because the Joker is obviously going to be number one in our playbooks and number one in our hearts for all time. So who's your second favorite Nolan character? And I'll go first to give you a chance to let it mellow for a sec. Mine is Christian Bale in The Prestige. I think he is just amazingly talented as an actor. It's such a complex character. And like you said, the reverse at the end, when you're like, this guy we thought was the asshole the whole time, he's the good guy. It's just such an incredible performance. I think Christian Bale embodies that character so much. Like, you look at the two magicians, you have Hugh Jackman they're both very passionate, but Hugh Jackman is more refined and more polished, whereas Christian Bale is sort of the street-level hustler, right? And he really just embodies this guy who's had to claw for everything his whole life, and he's secretly been living this double life with his twin and his kids that it's like he has to share, and no one knows his real identity. It's just such an amazingly complex and soulful performance, and there's just such an intensity to the way he plays the character. So I think it's such an awesome character in an awesome movie. And it's not just like Anne Hathaway in Interstellar crying in every scene or whatever, like it's just, there's so many components to his character. I love that one. To me, that he stands out the most. I do have a runner-up, but I'll let you, if you have another one that you like or that just stands out.
I think it's hard because I think of all of his movies being ensemble movies.
That's fair.
And despite the fact that he has some of the biggest in it with Leo and Christian Bale and Tom Hardy, even though it's a joke, Michael Caine, Jesus Christ, who's Fox? And
Morgan Freeman.
Thank you,
Sure.
Morgan Freeman. I mean, name an amazing actor. Like,
yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman would have been a badass Christopher Nolan actor. So here's written character, maybe not the best acted, is Memento.
Leonard?
Yep.
Okay.
Leonard with all the weird tattoos, the Post-it notes, the weird kinks, the fact that he can't remember anything because of trauma, which the disease is actually skipping my mind. Basically, he has like PTSD, right? But he's actually using his own PSD to hide the truth from himself. That's a fucking awesome character.
Yeah. When you say it like that.
Yeah. Acted the best? Maybe not. But as far as written character on page goes, probably that. Second favorite character.
You're saying you like that character more than the Joker?
I
thought we were both assuming the Joker's number one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So third favorite character.
Okay.
Third favorite.
I'm gonna put this out there so you don't have to. Tom Hardy in Inception as Eames.
He's pretty great.
It just introduced the world to Tom Hardy, and I think he's so good in that movie, and he's different because he's a very refined and polished Englishman. Like, darling, it's not just about doing this and this. We have to do this and this. Like, he's just so different than all his other roles, which are just like intense, badass presence, like beating someone's ass, or just like, he has that grandiosity to him.
He's like that in Locke, though.
Locke is a very reserved movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's powerful because he is the only one on screen for an hour and a half, but I don't feel like he's an intimidating character in Locke.
But that's what I mean. He's closer to the Inception character.
Oh, okay.
Where he's reserved.
Sure. But I think Inception came out before Locke.
Yeah.
And, it's a very different character, and he does him very well. But it was our first taste for the mainstream world to Tom Hardy.
Here's the deal. I'm going to invert it. Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow. Because he's known to be the reserved, proper Englishman, the Thomas Shelby, the keep it together guy. So him losing his mind, those scenes are really powerful when he snaps. and it shows a depth to Cillian Murphy that I don't think a lot of people think he has.
Interesting. Hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy about Christopher Nolan movies is there are so many people you forget because of, like you said, their ensembles, right? If you look at Interstellar, Jessica Chastain's in that movie, Anne Hathaway's in that movie, Casey Affleck is in that movie, Topher Grace, Matt Damon, surprise Matt Damon in that movie,
right?
Out of nowhere,
right? Another fucking problem I have with that movie. It's like this doctor you're building up the entire time is Matt Damon.
Yeah,
could have gotten Mark Wahlberg.
You know what's funny is that so.
To tie back to my not being able to tell them apart.
What I always joke about with Interstellar is like, so Matt Damon is in that movie as the lost scientist on the planet.
Dr. Mann.
Yeah, that they rescue who's like lost in space or whatever. And then a year after this movie comes out, The Martian comes out, where the entire movie is Matt Damon plays an astronaut lost in space on a planet. So my buddies and I always joke, like, he just showed up to set a year early. He's like, I'm ready to go. And they're like, bro, you're on the wrong set. You're 8 months early for The Martian.
And he's like,
it's the same character. I'm here now. It's the same character, but for some reason he's just like cameos in this movie.
And then okay.
You're just 8 months early, bro.
Hang on a second.
Didn't start yet.
All right. So here's a little behind the scenes for you guys. I pull clips, right, and then I edit them and then I show them to Justin. The original clip I pulled. Let me just. You're not going to be able to see this at home, but Justin's going to laugh. So I'm going through, right, and I'm like looking. This is the original pic, or where'd it fucking go? Shit. Gravity. When they get detached in Gravity, I pulled that clip thinking it was Interstellar.
The movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. Yeah, nice. I think they came out
They all came.
a year
The
after.
Martian.
Right,
they all came out like bang, 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 and I was like,
that's too funny.
Interstellar was that good. I don't think I'm going to see The Martian.
Yeah, all right in a row. These big space epics.
Right.
That's too funny. Okay, while we're on the subject of Inception, I think we have one more slide before the over/under.
Yeah.
But this, to me, I think is just such an amazingly cool fact, and it just is. It shows Christopher Nolan's commitment to cinema, right? But so the movie Inception is about a team of thieves who enter people's minds and steal their secrets while they dream.
Correct.
One of the very common things that you hear about with writing when people are stuck or have writer's block or just getting started and don't know what to write, people say, write what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that often leads to success, right? You think of Mindy Kaling wrote a show about an awkward Indian teenager in high school, and Never Have I Ever's become a big success, and that's a great show. Lil Dicky, Dave made a show about a struggling rapper who is Lil Dicky, like he wrote a show about himself.
Hi, I'm Dave.
Yeah.
Lil Dicky. Hi, I'm Dave. That was the best thing that came out in 2020.
That's a high bar to set.
No, it's not. Tiger King came out in 2020. It's not that hard.
It's not better than Tiger King?
We got Mandalorian coming up in October. That's the only thing that's going to give it a run for its money.
Do you watch The Boys? That season 2 comes out this week.
Everybody seems to love that too. I don't care.
Boys is awesome. But yeah, and then like Tina Fey, Liz Lemon, right? She wrote about being a writer on a TV show. Or Aziz Ansari. You can go down the list of all these people who just wrote shows about basically their life.
Master of None is so fucking good.
Yeah.
And he has not given us a conclusion to that. And that pisses me off.
I don't think it's going to come back. I really don't. I mean, he's straight up said, like, I don't have anything that I feel I need to say right now.
Right.
Like, until my life changes again and I can reflect that.
Right.
So just marry that girl. If you're still dating that Danish girl, marry her and then be Francesca. So they say write what you know. Christopher Nolan did that in Inception. The main team of dream thieves, all of their positions on the team are modeled after department heads on a movie set.
That's fucked up.
Leonardo DiCaprio is the director. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the producer. He's not creative at all, but he gets things done in the way the director wants them to, which, these are going by the stereotype of what these positions are.
Okay.
You have Ellen Page. She's the production designer. She designs the world that these guys go into. She creates the sets for them to enter and play around with.
Do production designers panic a lot on set?
It depends. Sometimes if you ruin their set.
All right.
Tom Hardy's the actor. Tom Hardy is the forger in this movie. He changes his appearance. He inhabits a character in a role. He plays Robert Foster's uncle, right? So he changes his... Leo even asks him, how's your handwriting? It's versatile, meaning he can do a multitude of different styles and types. Ken Watanabe is the financier who's just along for the ride because he put up the money, even though he actually, he just wants to oversee it. But even like he has no purpose there creatively, and he's just kind of in the way. So they all have a role on the team equivalent to how you run a movie set. And when I found that out, I had to think about it at first, but then when I thought about how each of them goes through the movie, it really clicked into place that that's how it was written. So Inception is basically written as a movie about a movie, right? So
which is even more
it plays out.
Inception.
It's like a movie within a movie, right?
Again, like he's such a nerd.
Yeah. Does that make sense to you though? Do you have any qualms with that? Leo directing, JGL the producer of, essentially they are putting on a show in these dreams, right? They have to convince people they are different people, and they have to persuade them. They have to convince them otherwise. They have to suspend their disbelief and plant these ideas and change their emotions and their thoughts and all these things.
Let me watch it again.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know. Off the top of my head, it checks out. It checks out. I don't know. I just think of Leo as being so, like, lost in that movie. Like, yes, he's a part of it, but, like, it feels like Leo is, like, so absent and then, like, gets dragged into things almost against his will, which I feel like wouldn't be the director. Like, the director should be in the middle of it.
I mean, if you think about how he runs the team, everything that happens
I get
runs
that.
through him. Right?
I just think because, like, the entire time Leo's, like, talking about, his wife and getting back to his kids and, like, that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, that's his own personal demons and his issues that he deals with, he struggles with. I think a lot of directors go through that and people don't realize it because they only see the final product of what a movie is. And even when they're on set, they see a director going through the motions, but they don't realize all the stress and all the pressure and all the things that are building up in their mind. I mean, the prime example of it, right? Francis Ford Coppola on Apocalypse Now, who literally tried to commit suicide on that movie because he couldn't wrap his brain around it while they were shooting it,
Interstellar is Hearts of Darkness.
Apocalypse Now is Hearts of Darkness.
The book, Hearts of Darkness, it's an homage to Hearts of Darkness. Interstellar is. Think about so if we're doing Apocalypse Now, right? So Matt Damon's character is what's his name? Marlon Brando's character.
Colonel Kurtz.
Yep. And Matthew McConaughey is Charlie Sheen. Like, they're the same. Like, the tropes and the overall idea of the story is Hearts of Darkness.
Interesting. I'll have to go back and think about that one.
You go watch Interstellar. I'll watch Inception. Fuck you, you lose.
Yeah, you'll think about it next time you're watching it. It's just such a cool idea, especially as movie lovers, right? Not only does this guy make movies the way he does, but he also makes movies about movies, which
he's a nerd. He's a total nerd.
Yes. And if you hear him speak about film,
I did. I listened to
which you did, all the research, you get that sense, and that's why he's so passionate about preserving film and preserving the theatrical experience. I mean, he almost single-handedly saved Kodak when they were about to go out of business by rallying everyone in the industry around it. So, yes, he's just a true lover of cinema, which I respect so much.
Absolutely. I mean, we both are to a large extent for different reasons, but yeah.
So with that, let's head to our final segment here. We do our overrated.
Favorite.
I have really grown to like this segment, the overrated, underrated segment. Luckily, he doesn't have 40 different movies that are all shit like Ben Affleck did last week. Gigli, anyone?
Fuck you, Ben Affleck's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just gonna go in order. Following. We have not seen Following.
No.
And Insomnia, we have not seen Insomnia.
Yeah.
So we're starting with Memento. Overrated or underrated? And yes, we can do appropriately rated.
I'm going to go overrated.
What?
Here's why. I don't think you enjoy this movie if you're not a nerd. Like, if you're not a film nerd, I don't think you love this movie.
That's an interesting way to look at it, and I would agree, I think. I would probably say people think it's cool, but just
Right. Like I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are probably lost when they watch this movie. You and I are like, "Oh my god, like right, all this
Right.
shit." But like I think this is masturbation to me. Like it really is. It's self-pleasure.
I think I agree with that. Not the self-pleasuring part, but the cinema lovers will love it, and it's appropriately rated.
Right.
Normal moviegoers probably overrated because they have heard so much about it, and then they watch it and they can't maybe get into it as much.
You said you have not seen Insomnia, right?
I have not.
Okay, cool. So we'll leave that one off.
Yeah. Batman Begins, I think, is it's a tough one because it's just such not on the level. Like The Dark Knight came after it. Can you imagine a trilogy where you go from one to The Dark Knight?
Under fucking rated.
My gut was to say underrated.
It's so good.
I think I just like Liam Neeson so much.
It's awesome. Raj Al Ghul.
Yeah.
It's
just the way he delivers things.
Like,
I think it's probably underrated.
You know how you have those movies that if you're flipping through the channels and it's on TV, you stop and like the rest of your day, you're like, nope, I'm not getting up till this movie's over.
Yeah,
Batman
like
Begins.
The Social Network. It'll happen to you one day.
Nobody should ever put that movie on TV.
It'll happen to you, and you're like,
garbage.
I just
Fincher's
I'm
garbage.
just
Overrated, David Fincher.
I can't do this podcast anymore.
Well, fuck you.
I guess I'll say underrated. Like, I definitely don't love it, but it's probably better than you remember because everyone just thinks of The Dark Knight.
Right.
Prestige, underrated.
Absolutely.
Because so many people did not see it, and it's brilliant.
It's so good.
So good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I was trying to do other things and couldn't. Like I was so locked in. I was like, what is going on in this
It's
shit?
just got such a great cast, and it's the
cast.
The story is great, but the visuals are so much fun, and magicians, magic is. How do you not love a world of magic when movies are essentially magic?
And to call out particularly an underrated Scarlett Johansson performance.
Sure.
That's my hot take. She's better than everybody thinks she is. She's not just hot. She's
really
good.
She's a very talented actress.
She's incredible.
Even before Jojo Rabbit and Marriage Story, she had done incredible. She was in, what's the Bill Murray movie? Lost in Translation.
Yep. Awesome in that.
Yes, she was great in this movie. I mean, Lucy is more of an action movie, but Scarlett Johansson has done a lot of movies. I don't know if people realize that. This came out before Iron Man. This was 2006. Iron Man was 2008, so yeah.
Give me Tom Hardy and ScarJo.
Oof, what a combo.
Yep.
A lot of intensity there. Yeah, so underrated for the Prestige, sure. And then we have The Dark Knight Rises, which...
Man, this movie's terrible.
It was underrated by the fucking Film Academy, who did not nominate it.
How is this not Picture of the Year?
The reason they expanded the Best Picture category to up to 10 was because this movie specifically, it had always been 5, and everyone was in an outrage that this movie, rightly so, did not get nominated for Best Picture. So they changed the rules of the voting and of the eligibility to make it up to 10 movies per Best Picture per year, strictly because this movie did not get recognized.
Can we just... every time I watch this movie, I text you the same thing every time. Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, Aaron Eckhart, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Morgan Freeman, and fucking Heath Ledger is acting circles around all of them.
Yeah, I think that this.
Good.
I don't think a lot of people would disagree if I said this was the best character and performance in film history. I think it's top 5 for sure for everybody.
God, is it good?
It's probably my favorite villain of all time. I mean,
I'm so sad thinking about it.
Yeah.
But this is fucked up, especially after we just lost another fantastic actor who played an amazing character in Chadwick Boseman. It's almost awesome that he died because now we don't have anything after it.
I wouldn't say awesome, but I think it adds to the legend. It's like if Hendrix hadn't died at 27, if Jim Morrison had like musicians or whoever, athletes, yeah.
Right.
If these people
Kurt
don't
Cobain
die,
never made a bad album.
Yeah, I mean I think it only emphasizes things,
Like think about if McConaughey does Wolf of Wall Street Buyers Club and then dies.
Yeah, at the height of the McConaissance,
you would just be like he was the greatest. Period.
Yeah.
And that was Heath Ledger was at the beginning of his own renaissance, and we were robbed of a lot of things, I'm sure. But what was the movie he was making where a bunch of different actors filled in to finish the part?
It was Terry Gilliam's movie. It was called The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, which is
right.
set in, it's like a circus or a traveling circus, and he plays sort of this, not stage magician necessarily, but he's sort of like a ringleader.
Right.
And then it's very trippy. Like Terry Gilliam's a very trippy filmmaker,
Yeah.
and it's like they go into different dream worlds, and Johnny Depp plays one, and Jude Law plays another, and
Right.
Colin Farrell
Right,
plays
right,
they
right,
all play
right,
different versions of him in these alternate realities.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the movie he was in the middle of. Dark Knight, I think I will say underrated by the Academy, but everyone else appropriately
How many
rated.
other? Okay, so when you think of The Dark Knight, which movie poster do you think of?
The one with Batman standing in front of the burning bat
Okay.
signal.
This is the one I think of.
Okay. Yeah.
I think a lot of people think of this one too. Like this was the one in a lot of people's rooms, right?
Mhm.
And to think that the B character is the poster character that a lot of people think of is pretty fucking wild. But
Yeah. You know what? I want to ask you, or I'll wait till we get to The Dark Knight Rises, but after
Okay.
this we have Inception.
also just fucking badass.
I love this.
Accurately rated. Both of them.
Yeah, and I remember the trailer. I'm like, watching the cities fold onto each other and stuff like that. I'm like,
But like,
I
can
don't
we just
know.
like, all right, boom, 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 fucking shit, man.
Yeah.
Can anybody, like any artist, string together 4 more perfect fucking pieces?
Right.
Right?
No, it's very near impossible.
Like I think
Not
how-
only great on an artistic level, but also great at the box office. The
Right,
combination
right.
of both.
Do you know what it makes me think of?
No.
Zeppelin 1 through 4.
Ooh, I do like that comparison. But Zeppelin is probably the greatest rock and roll band of all time. So,
But these 4 movies,
Yeah.
you put up against just about anybody else's 4 movies, and he's gonna win
in a
out.
row.
In a row,
Yeah.
right? Spielberg did Jaws, then E.T. like a decade later, then Jurassic Park a decade later. Not like bang, 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 right?
Right.
Cameron did Titanic, and then 20 decades later did Avatar, right? There's no, but like, in a time span of like what, 5-6 years too. On top of that,
Yeah,
like
one after the other, pretty much.
Damn, is that good?
It's crazy. I don't know. I don't know if everyone has seen it, but I think most people have. So probably appropriately rated for
Yeah.
sure. And then we have The Dark Knight Rises, which I think is super overrated. I fucking hate this movie. I love to hate it, I guess is the best way
Yeah.
to say it.
Yeah.
Like, definitely working on it, and because it's shot in Pittsburgh, that just takes me out of the third act completely, because I have
You're like,
the
why are they
fake snow
fighting on the
like in my
steps?
room, and there it's like, this is so clearly your hometown, right?
Right.
And everything, like, you recognize everything. The football scene in particular is like super weird and
That's,
awkward. That just feels awkward.
Did you watch American Pickle yet?
No.
Okay, so that's the Seth Rogen movie that was shot in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Most of it in Lawrenceville,
Okay.
where I've lived for the past 6 years. And like, I was like looking for me in the background on my bicycle. I'm
Yeah.
like, man, you're not even kind of fake in New York.
Right.
That's just Pittsburgh. Like, Brooklyn streets are so much wider and more chaos happens on them. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I get that. And yeah, just in general, I just don't think the movie is very well written. It's all over.
What did you want to ask me about this?
I don't know if you've ever thought about this in trivia for the Dark Knight trilogy, but I really enjoyed this when I read it too. It's just one of those facts that's so cool to me. We talked about on the Phantom Menace podcast how the fight scene between Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan was broken down into 3 acts, right? Everyone knows the 3 act structure is how a screenplay is written, and you can also take that and implement it at even smaller levels. You can have one scene have 3 acts to it, or one sequence have 3 acts to it, like we talked about in Phantom Menace. The way that all 3 of these movies form 3 acts is really interesting, because Christopher Nolan has come out and said that he had a different idea and theme that he wanted to explore in each one as an overarching theme. And
Yeah.
have you heard this before?
Yeah,
So
and it's about humanity.
well, it's not necessarily about it's about humanity,
Right.
but so Batman Begins, you have all this stuff going on, all the plots and everything that's connected, and just how the awesomeness of the movie himself. But the overarching theme of Batman Begins is fear.
Mm-hmm.
The overarching
The fear
theme,
toxin literally being the big bad.
it's
of the
literally
movie.
yeah,
Right.
and just his own overcoming his fear of the bats and of all these different things. Fear is Batman Begins. The Dark Knight is chaos.
Mm-hmm.
The entire theme of the movie is chaos. The Joker's creating chaos, and it's Batman's essentially fighting for the soul of Gotham City against an agent of chaos, right? And The Dark Knight Rises is about pain. So you have
Breaks his back.
fear,
has to come back.
chaos, pain, and to just think about it, because I hadn't thought about that when I'm watching it, but then you go back and realize, like, wow, that entire movie was about fear, or that entire movie was about pain through all these different points and all these different scenes. Bane physically breaks him and beats him down, and just when you think of the movie through those lenses, I always find that super cool, just because it's like he was thinking on a bigger level than just one movie at a time. It's like, these are the 3 movies. I'm going to explore this specifically in each one through all these various characters and complex storylines and things like that. But at the heart of it is this one concept.
I think, and if you were to say Batman's 4 pillars as a character are those 3 plus then revenge.
That's interesting. Isn't his thing he doesn't do revenge, though? Or
I mean, the whole thing is revenge for the... Maybe justice is probably a better word, but like the whole reason he's Batman is because of the death of his parents.
Right.
And he, his revenge is putting bad guys away.
But that was just always really interesting, man.
There was... I was paying attention, but not paying attention enough. There's something about the Christopher Nolan movies... I can't even pull it up. I'm so tired.
It's just a lot to digest. All of it.
I'll find it and I'll send it to you, and then we can talk about it next week. But there's something about that everything before Batman Begins is about one thing, then Batman Begins through Inception and is about something else, and then Dark Knight Rises is the pivot point, and then Interstellar, Dunkirk, and Tenet are the future. I can't remember.
So it's like of his career, even it's broken down into those segments of like this chunk is
right.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Next we have Interstellar, which overrated or underrated for Interstellar?
Overrated. Although I don't know, because everyone hates this fucking movie, so I think it's probably properly rated.
I don't hate is not the right word. I don't hate it, and I don't think people hate it. I just think when you compare it to his other movies, it's definitely on the lower end.
It doesn't even look at this poster, right? Versus like this poster, this poster, this poster, this
right.
poster. All these are so cool, right? And then I turned you off there. And then you have like this weird fucking space guy, which is clearly all about the star. And it's just...
It doesn't even look like he's in space though. It just looks like he's on a snowy mountain, But I think people feel the same way about Interstellar, which is like it's okay and they don't want to watch it again.
It was also a bad stretch through movies, Thor: Dark World came out during this movie. There were a lot of bad movies made for like a 5 or a 10 year span. This just happens to be inside of it.
Yeah, Interstellar is I think appropriately rated. Dunkirk. You have not seen Dunkirk,
nope.
So it's hard to say. I think Dunkirk's a little overrated. I don't know if I would have given him Best Director for this. Again, that was a gimme because everyone was just so outraged he had never gotten nominated for Best Director.
Right.
So it was sort of like a, making up for it. Dunkirk, again, I don't think it stands out above any of the other things that he's done, either on a technical level or a story level. It's certainly good, and I respect it for what it is, but I think people just kind of gave it so much love because Christopher Nolan had been shunned so many times before.
Sure.
So...
And
now we have Tenet.
Yes, and we haven't seen it yet, but John David Washington is the lead. Go see it.
Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki. Yeah, another movie where he's playing with time with this concept called inversion. Kenneth Branagh. I mean, a stellar cast. My fear with Tenet is that when I mentioned to you before earlier in the show, we talked about how Christopher Nolan had conquered so many different ideas, space-time, memory, dreams, all these different things. The Tenet trailer looks a lot to me like other Christopher Nolan movies.
But maybe that's a good thing.
I don't know. He was always doing things that were so different from each other. And I see a lot of Inception in this. I see a lot of familiar shots, and the lighting is very familiar. I'm worried that this movie is just going to be too similar to something we've done before, and I never had that fear before with Christopher Nolan. So I'm not super excited for Tenet, even though, of course, I'm going to see it, and I hope my mind is blown. But... we will see. Next week we'll see if we both saw it and do it then. But
I don't think I'll probably have seen it by then. But yeah.
Okay.
Well. So yeah, that was our homage to Christopher Nolan.
Truly one of the greatest out there at the moment. One of the greatest in film history, certainly. And his new movie is out this week.
I just want to point something out to you.
Okay.
This show's been about an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
We also did an hour and a half about another great. Perhaps the greatest of a generation, like Christopher Nolan is the greatest director of a generation. Paul Rudd, We did an hour and a half on Paul Rudd, the greatest actor of a generation.
Yeah, what if he was in a Christopher Nolan movie?
Holy shit!
How come he hasn't been?
Let's go!
Why hasn't he been?
I don't know. Why isn't Johnny Depp or Will Smith or fucking Brad Pitt? Fuck you.
Well, on that very friendly note,
yes,
we're going to sign off for this week. Thank you guys for watching Thoughts from the Movies. We'll be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. To bring you more cinematic adventures. So have a good week, everyone. Go see Tenet.